Yeah, I mean, listen, any effort that delays this before the 2024 election is a de facto win for Donald Trump, because it's like you said, if he were to succeed in reclaiming the presidency, he will either pardon himself or he will appoint an attorney general who will just dismiss all of this. I mean, listen, this is really the central thesis of the Donald Trump presidency. It has nothing to do with the American people. It has nothing to do with a policy agenda that conservatives could like. It is literally elect me president and keep me out of jail. This is a presidential campaign that's going to be conducted from courtroom to courtroom to courtroom in this country. And every time that he does, he's just going to talk about relitigating the 2020 election and then making the case that the only way that he can, I guess, overcome what he will call a rigged system aimed against him is to be elected president so he can dismiss everything.
Molly, we're running out of time as 2024 gets underway in earnest just in a couple of weeks with the various primaries. How harmful could the smallest delay be for Donald Trump?
Well, I think that for him, the delays are good, right? It helps him, right? He kicks the can. But it hurts the other candidates because it makes it, the base likes this, right? The base, Trump says this is not about me. It is, of course, about him. And so he relitigates this in the court of public opinion for the base, and the base likes it. So it ends up drowning out the noise of the other candidates, which I think is a problem for the other candidates. But yeah, I mean, Trump is going to kick the can. His people are going to work as hard as they can to try to push this. And, time is his goal, right? I mean, delay. And this is what he always does. But I think, he's really managed to suck up a lot of oxygen. And I think that he's really kind of taken, that away from the possible anti-Trump candidate.
The other big news this week, guys, and Molly, was the Colorado news. We're quickly approaching, Danny, the state's primary ballot deadline when names have to be actually put on the ballot. When could we expect to hear from the Supreme Court here? I mean, could the Supreme Court gather all the arguments that it needs, hold the oral arguments, make a decision before the deadline of printing ballots?
Likely not. But, the January 4th deadline imposed by the Colorado Supreme Court really isn't as significant as everyone is making it out to be. And here's why. The court has just stayed taking Trump off the ballot. It's hit the pause button on removing Trump from the ballot until that date. But as long as the Trump team appeals, they'll continue that stay, which means Trump still remains on the ballot literally until the court hears otherwise from another court. And of course, the Trump team is going to appeal. So Trump is going to be on the ballot probably for the foreseeable future in Colorado until something happens at another court. And, Elie Mystal wrote a terrific piece in The Nation that we talked about at the top of the hour. But I also independently agree with him and think that there are just so many different ways. If you think of this Colorado Supreme Court opinion as a line of dominoes, you need all of them to remain straight up for the opinion to survive. But any one of them falls, and the rest of the opinion could likely fall. And just to give you an example, the Colorado District Court, the lower court, concluded after a hearing and evidence that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist. But then they concluded that because he was not an officer within Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, that even the fact that he committed insurrection did not disqualify him. There are a number of other legal arguments that Elie talks about, but for example, it may not be something that the court can even hear. It may be non-justiciable. It may be something that only Congress can handle. And Elie pointed out they could say it's too soon to decide it. They could equally say, you know what, it's too far along, too close to the election to decide it. So there are just so many ways, so many hooks to hang that Supreme Court hat upon that if you're just playing the odds, no matter what team you're on, the odds are this gets overturned at the Supreme Court.
To that point, Kurt, the court of public opinion, there's been a lot of talk about this ruling that it takes the decision out of the hands of the voters. But there is actually a new poll that finds 54% of Americans agreed with taking Trump off of the ballot. Give me your thoughts on that. I mean, is this issue as divisive as some would like us to believe, or is it more clear-cut? Should perhaps Colorado wait till Donald Trump is actually convicted of an insurrection to make the legal argument that he is definitely an insurrectionist, even though we all know that he was responsible for January the 6th.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting hearing Republicans talk about, wow, this needs to be in the hands of the voters, not justices. And I don't remember them making that case when the Supreme Court decided the presidential election in 2000. I'm sure Al Gore would love to hear Republicans take now that justices should not be determining the outcomes of presidential elections. For all of this talk from Republicans about the people's vote, listen, the people did decide. They decided that Donald Trump lost, and the Republicans did not accept that, and then they fomented an insurrection attempt to overthrow the government. You can't say now, well, the people should decide, when you try to overthrow the will of the people on the floor of the United States House of Representatives the evening of January 6th, where more than 150 Republicans voted to throw out the results of a free and fair election. You cannot keep having it both ways. Which one is it, folks? And, oh, by the way, I love also how they're saying now, well, listen, we should have states' rights decide everything when it comes to things like abortion, but when a state like Colorado exercises state sovereignty, they want to overrule it.